This is the Pick Six podcast, and this is Sunday Night Super Friends.
Merry
That's
Christmas.
Breech. That's Will Brinson. I'm Ryan Wilson. This is Sunday Night Super Friends, Christmas night into the day after Christmas, which I think they call Boxing Day, Harry. If you ever lived in England, you would know that. Week 16 NFL Recap 2023 edition.
Is that because are they like fights? Like they schedule matches between people with boxing gloves?
Breech, remember, give us a thumbs up if you're watching us on the old YouTube, at NFL on CBS, and of course, subscribe so you never miss Will Brinson explaining how holidays work on the other side of the pond. All right, we're going to talk about our top 10 takeaways like we always do from week 16 this time, a week that started, Breech, with Jake Browning going to Pittsburgh and doing what turned out to be his best Brock Purdy imitation. And the week ended in Santa Clara with the actual Brock Purdy throwing 4 interceptions against the Ravens team that, for the time being anyway, looks like the best team on planet Earth after that comprehensive win to conclude the Monday night triple-header.
Breech, before you talk about Jake Browning, Chris Trapasso, the world's biggest Mason Rudolph fan, recorded this for you. As you got banged by Mason Rudolph, buddy.
We can sort of hear that. That was yeah. Breech has had a tough few days here, but hey, happy Christmas.
That game was so long ago, and this weekend's been so long. I didn't even remember it happening.
It feels like it was like 2 years ago. I'm sure that Jake Browning, it feels like it was 2 days ago. All right, Breech, let's start with you here. Is this Ravens win? You're a Bengals homer. I'm a Steelers homer. The best win of the season for any team, given the timing, the fact that it was on the road, and the playoff implications.
Yes. This was one of those, I think all of us probably picked the 49ers straight up, but thought it was going to be a close game. But this was one of those where I don't think a lot of people thought the Ravens were going to win, let alone win by 2 touchdowns. I mean, they destroyed them. This was a curb stomping. They dominated the game. Brock Purdy was seeing ghosts. This guy's supposed to be an MVP candidate. He get 2 interceptions in. He looked like he had no idea what was going on anymore. Granted, all 4 of those interceptions weren't his fault, but the fact that he threw 4 interceptions just tells you that the Ravens defense was everywhere. And when you think about all the weapons the 49ers have, and can anyone slow them down? Can anyone stop them? And the Ravens proved that, yes, you can. And also that sometimes you have a defense that is one of the top 10 in the NFL based on yards given up and points per game because they play an easier schedule. Not the Ravens. I mean, they proved that their defense is legit. We already know their offense is for real. So to me, this team feels like the Super Bowl favorite. Brinson, you think so?
Yeah, I think what's pretty notable is that if you take the biggest NFC wins of the season from Baltimore and San Francisco like drubbed the Eagles, smoked the Cowboys, and then you also have Baltimore who goes and destroys Seattle, destroys Detroit at home, and then goes on the road and beats San Francisco. And just because of how San Francisco's been playing, the only 3 losses are when Debo and Trent Williams are out. They are rolling. Brock Purdy is like minus 190 to win the MVP. And this line opened at 5 and climbed up to 6.5 before the game kicked off. But like San Francisco was nearly a touchdown favorite against a number 1 seed in the AFC. And while it took Baltimore a little ways to pull away here, they needed 2 quick scores in the third quarter to really turn this into a blowout. I thought it was very clear from the beginning that Baltimore felt disrespected by the national perception of what was going to happen in this game, the belief that the 49ers were going to roll. And, they did it with their defense. They flew around the field. Those linebackers are so good. And I think it's like you watch the way the scheme and how they bring pressure and how they get pressure on Brock Purdy and how they generate it with these like, the false, they're not false fronts, I guess is a fair word, where it looks like they're bringing 8 guys and they drop back. And then you have these linebackers who, when we think about Kyle Shanahan's offense, and this is sort of the reason I like the Ravens against the spread, but Kyle Shanahan constantly has these guys over the middle running wide open, getting yak. Well, the Ravens were able to get pressure on Brock Purdy or get their hands up and tip balls, and the linebackers were sort of eliminating a lot of that free space. And Baltimore is just a very complete team. They lost Mark Andrews, but it was a situation where Lamar Jackson only had to run 7 times. I think if the game had been closer, he has a bigger game, and people are really talking about him as an MVP favorite. And like Baltimore has flown under the radar about as much as you can as a 1 seed in the AFC because of the struggles with the Chiefs, the struggles with the Bills, the Dolphins and all their big performances. All these different storylines in the AFC have sort of allowed Baltimore to just plug along, pile up wins. And I think they're as good and a complete as a team as San Francisco is on the other side, and they just smoked the 1 seed in the NFC.
I would say, and I'm going to use your own words against you. That's our Super Bowl pool. The Ravens were the number 2 pick. I mean, we knew that the Ravens were a good team. I think we also probably agreed. Well, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that I don't know if they're flying. Like, people knew they were good.
Well, they're not flying under. I just feel like nobody. At no point has anybody gotten really excited for the Ravens this year. You know what I mean?
But I would say that no one ever in the history of the Baltimore Ravens have gotten excited about the Ravens.
Well, and just to that point, I will say, like, my hesitation with them all year has been in my preseason picks. I had them in the AFC title game, but my hesitation with them is still the same, which is what's going to happen when they get to the playoffs, because they have this history of falling flat on their face in the playoffs. And so
does this game make you feel better about that, though, on the road?
I mean, it makes me feel a little better, but it's still not a playoff game. But also, Lamar Jackson has a 20-1 record against NFC teams. He just absolutely destroys them because they have no idea what they're up against, because they only see him once every 4 years. And so, yes, obviously huge win. And like I said, I think the Ravens are the Super Bowl favorite. But, you just look at their playoff track record, 1-4 with Lamar. So that is where you worry a little bit.
Breech, do you think that this – see, and this is sort of where I'm at, but I'm curious.
1-3 with Lamar. Sorry.
I'm curious what you guys think about this, but do you think that this Ravens team with this version of Lamar, and this version of Lamar is very different than 2019 Lamar, and I mean that in complimentary to both versions. Lamar in 2019 is just like nuke bombing the entire like NFL with this rushing attack a la what he did in Louisville. This version is almost like more subdued, but in a good way. He's more of a pocket passer. And I do think that they were really going to start using his legs more in December when he's fully healthy versus with the Greg Roman offenses of the last few years where they used his legs in September and he was hurt late in the season. I think, I don't know, that this version should scare opposing defenses more, given how late in the season they're activating his legs and how much better of a passer he's shown to be. We all knew he was a great passer, but like in pocket passer now, you know what I mean?
No, I agree with that. And I think that sort of to follow up on your point, he does feel calmer in the pocket. He's not looking to run. And I think in sort of the history of the Ravens that you're talking about with Lamar, Breech, it's been one where franticness, to make up a word, seems to take over, and then mistakes are made. And those mistakes were actually made by the other guy playing quarterback, which we typically don't see from Brock Purdy either. But let me ask you this, Breech, since you're sort of on the bus, but you still have 1 foot off the bus, and the bus is getting ready to leave Ravens Station here. So the Ravens' last loss came in Week 10 to the Browns. And the 49ers had that 3-game losing streak when everyone was hurt, and Purdy had the concussion, started the Browns game in bad weather, then the Vikings game, the 0 blitz at halftime, yada, yada, yada. And then your Bengals were just coming back with Joe Burrow and looked to be the part, and they played lights out since then. I feel like, sort of to support what Brinson's saying here, there aren't any recent losses you can point to like, oh, see, this is why I have the concerns about the Ravens. Even the Lions should be like, okay, look, these guys play hard for 45 minutes, and 15 minutes every Sunday, they're going to give up 40 points, it feels like.
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens are blowing everyone out. I think they've had the lead at the 2-minute warning in every single game this season. They are through 16 games. Only the 2007 Patriots and 1972 Dolphins have also done that. So we're talking about they are in a club with the only 2 teams that went undefeated in NFL history. And they're dominating. They're winning a lot of their games by double digits. We saw them beat the Bengals by double digits in the Thursday night game. They beat the Chargers by double digits when Justin Herbert was still out there. They beat the Jacksonville by double digits. So they're manhandling teams. I mean, they destroyed the Lions, destroyed the 49ers. It is, and you mentioned the Browns loss. Is that something that could happen? I mean, imagine if Joe Flacco went into Baltimore and beat the Ravens. That would be.
Dude, what if we get Jared Goff or Matthew Stafford and Joe Flacco versus the Ravens in the second round of the playoffs? Hey, just real quickly on that too, like the law. Wilson, I swear, I may have mentioned this already. I thought it was you and me doing HQ when someone asked us, what do we make, or like the podcast, and someone was like, what do you make of the Ravens coughing up these big leads? And it's like, I don't have an answer. maybe it wasn't you. Maybe it was, it was somebody asked me that. I was like, I don't really have an answer. And I think they have 3 losses this season. Their 3 losses are by a total of 12 points.
I was going to say, I don't feel like they've coughed up a ton of lead. I know there's some, you were to push back about Harbaugh late game, and in the fourth quarter, they would have some wheels fall off. Yeah.
Well, in after week 5, when you may recall when the Steelers were doing the Magic Beans thing,
remember that game?
They got to the Ravens. The Ravens were 3-2, lost by 3 to the Colts, and lost by 7 to the Steelers. And remember, it was that crazy. Like it was hard to explain how they were losing and how
they lost that Steelers game because Zay Flowers dropped 40 passes, then Joey Porter Jr. caught a an end zone touchdown.
Yeah. I'm just and Pickett had the big touchdown too, right? I'm just saying the narrative was, this Ravens team can't hold a lead. But they've lost 1 game since then.
I'll say this: that game.
But then the game they did lose was blowing a 2-touchdown lead to the Browns, who.
Right, but I guess this is my larger point: is when we couldn't understand how the Ravens weren't holding on to these leads. But to Breech's point, Wilson's point, they've had a lead 90% of the time this season, over 90%. I think the last team to do that was the 2007 Patriots, if I'm not wrong, and maybe even a team. I mean, it was the 2005 Colts, I think, who had a lead. Like, but anyway, 90% of the time they're leading. So eventually, if you're going to lose, like, you're just going to be victim of bad luck. And I think that just might be what it is. This is just a really, really good football team.
So, like, that Steelers loss was, you can't even explain that in human terms. That sort of feels like what happened with Brock Purdy tonight. So, Brinson, let me give you some results here from the 2023 season, and then we'll draw some conclusions together here. So, the Cowboys lost to the Cardinals. The Bills lost to the Patriots. What planet was that? The Eagles lost to the Seahawks with my guy, Andrew Stephen Locke. Chiefs lost to the Raiders. Again, what are we doing? The Dolphins lost to the Titans. Shout out producer Harry. And the Ravens lost to the Steelers and Browns, as we talked about here. How much do you want to overreact to the way Brock Purdy and everyone was healthy for the beginning of this game? Trent Williams came out late. Brock Purdy came out with about half the fourth quarter to go. How much do you want to overreact about what this means for the next month?
I don't want to overreact to it too much. I don't think, and Joe, our pal Joe Musso, who is a loyal YouTube watcher and avid chat joiner on this very show, asked me the same question on the HQ, and I don't think that you look at this game and say, well, the Brock Purdy story's over. Cute little run. You know, he's not going to win the MVP. He's now 19-1 to win MVP, and that's okay. Throwing 4 picks in a game on Christmas night with the entire world watching against the number 1 seed in the AFC when you're a 7-point favorite is going to cost you the MVP award. That's just how it works when you're the favorite. I thought that I tend to put, and obviously, you know, I'm not trying to flip it back on the Ravens, but I tend to put more of this on the Ravens and their defense and their ability to
absolutely.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying, to pressure him. I think Purdy is fine. I am concerned certainly that Trent Williams suffered an injury and had to leave this game.
They said it was a groin, so I don't know if he could have come back in or not. But yeah, it was a groin.
Yeah, and Purdy left with a stinger. It was one of those where he then was talking to Kyle Shanahan, and you could tell Kyle was like, "Look, dude, ain't no reason for you to go back out there down 14 with 2 minutes left. Like, let's lick our wounds and get out of here." I don't put that much. I don't look at this as
which, by the way, was interesting conversation, because if they score on that one possession, it's a 1-score game
with 3 timeouts.
3 timeouts.
Yeah, real interesting.
Do you think he doesn't?
Brock Purdy had to be pretty banged up for him not to go back in.
Oh yeah, maybe
in that situation.
I think the Niners were kind of. I think Kyle Shanahan was kind of surprised that he got back in the game. You know what I mean?
I don't know. I don't know about that.
I get it, but you have 1st and goal at the 1-yard line with over 2 minutes left, and you're only down 2 touchdowns, and you have all 3 timeouts. I have my best guys out there trying to win this game.
Breech, I don't want to spoil too much because we'll talk about it at the end of the show here, but does it matter for the 49ers if they lose this game in terms of their playoff futures in the NFC? Maybe that was part of the reason, unless you can tell me. You don't just give me like a 10-second answer so we don't spoil it.
I will just say they beat down the Cowboys and Eagles, 2 of the better teams in the NFC, so badly, it's hard to see it mattering in that sense. But with Brock Purdy, we talked about it in the Bengals game back in October. If you fluster him, they can't. He struggles, and then they can't play from behind. So if you get the lead, they're horrible. We saw the stat tonight that Kyle Shanahan's 0-37 if his team's trailing by 8 or more points in the fourth quarter. There's no comebacks. They don't come back. So if you jump out quickly, you are going to win. That is how you beat them.
this offense with Brock Purdy under center, and this is I don't know if this is more of an insult than the game manager thing. But it's not intended to be. It's just the reality of it. And look, it's hard to come back in the NFL. We had these Mahomes stats, like Patrick Mahomes has a winning record with a double digit when he's down double digits, which is just an insane stat. Brock Purdy ain't that. And this Brock Purdy and this 49ers offense, as it's constituted, are front runners. They are going to bury you if they are leading. If they are trailing, the game scripts and the play calls from the play calls from Kyle Shanahan and the game scripts and the way that Brock Purdy has to play change completely, because you're no longer operating with the defense assuming that you're trying to run downhill on them and keep the clock moving, and you have the freedom to run these play action passes that look exactly like their run plays. Instead, you are forced to drop back a ton, and the defense can play more pass like cheat coverage, where they are dropping into coverage. They are taking up that space that where these guys live when the defenders collapse trying to stop the run they think is coming. It's sort of the nature of the game. You're not operating with a freewheeling Patrick Mahomes behind under center. You've got Brock Purdy, and that's
let's play a little game here. Over under on, since Brinson knows they're like EPA now, we'll do expected points added for the quarterback performances from this week. Over under. So is Bailey's asking me number one. Is Brock Purdy above or below in terms of expected points added for his team than Bailey Zappi?
Below.
He is below. All right. Patrick Mahomes.
Above.
Below.
He's below. Breech is 2-0. All right. Let's get saucy here.
6 too. I guess. I mean,
let's do Cincinnati's version of Brock Purdy. Jake Browning.
He's below Jake Browning.
You have him below. Brock is below. What do you say, Breech?
Below.
He is indeed below.
Yes.
Tommy DeVito, who got benched for Tyrod Taylor.
Above.
Below.
He is indeed below. So the only people that are actually below the aforementioned Brock Purdy: Aiden O'Connell, Case Keenum, Sam Howell, who was also benched, and DTR, who came in for
Aiden O'Connell didn't complete a pass in the final 3 quarters of the football.
This is how poorly, and again, we've said this is all on Brock Purdy, but he's not a front runner, and whatever, it's hard to win, as Brinson noted, but he had a truly terrible week. Breech, let me ask you this: does this feel like a Joe Burrow versus TJ Watt situation, or does it feel differently than that?
What? Purdy versus
just this game. Is that a lingering thing, or is it a 1 week and go thing?
No, if you have a team that can fluster him and get after him, that's how you beat him. That's how you make him struggle. He'll throw. I mean, we saw early this year they lost by 2 touchdowns to the Bengals. That was the healthiest they had been before this beatdown.
We brought that up several times.
We saw them lose to the Vikings.
They beat the Bengals beat them.
They only scored 17 points against the Vikings. They were a little bit banged up.
Breech started glitching and just kept saying, "We saw it over and over again against the Bengals."
That was Breech's Super Bowl. It turned out
the Minnesota Vikings. The Minnesota Vikings also did it with you get the pass rush, you get ahead, get them off their game script.
All right, Breech.
They beat them.
We're going to move on.
I think it's sorry, just to point out too, I think it's notable that in all 4 of those losses, the 49ers, so in every single game this season that the 49ers have won, they've managed to hit 27 points or more. And in all 4 of those losses, they did not hit 20 points because they were in a spot where Purdy was being rushed and they were trailing and they were trying to come back. And look, the 49ers are fine. They're a really good team.
I don't.
It's just fine. I'll say this: Breech's point about the Ravens and Lamar Jackson and the struggles in the playoffs. I think that applies more to the 49ers and my concerns with the 49ers playing from behind if you have to than it does this current iteration of Baltimore.
Yeah, Breech, I think you would agree that Kyle Shanahan has a bigger P&O in his back than Lamar does in terms of postseason play.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
He blew a double-digit lead in a Super Bowl.
Right. And that's not even counting last year with the random sort of.
And that's not even count the time when he was offensive coordinator in a Super Bowl and lost.
All right, Breech, I'm going to come back to you. When you were a little late to the podcast because you're doing HQ, you were extremely rude to Harry, who, by the way, won his fantasy league. Harry. And do you want to take this opportunity to apologize to Harry and the Dolphins? Because everyone except me and producer Harry doubted the Dolphins. Had a huge win. You guys called it the Fraud Bowl. I went back and watched it this morning because we had family over last night. I thought it was a great game. I think part of the issue is when you fast forward through games and you don't listen to all the chit chat in between, it's actually a little different experience. I actually enjoyed it. I thought both teams are really good teams, and Brinson, you sort of mentioned this before we started the pod. And it was a tight game between two playoff teams who are sort of the Spider-Man meme. Does that sound about right, Breech?
Yeah. I mean, it can be called the Fraud Bowl and still be a great game. That doesn't mean you can't get. You have two frauds playing each other. That is the recipe for a great game. Come on.
Oh, it's a Fraud Bowl coming in. Not. I thought you meant coming out. It was a Fraud Bowl.
No, I think the Dolphins are good. I think the Cowboys are good, but there will be no apology because look what the Dolphins do. Their offense scored one touchdown. It's not like they went out there and put up 40 on the Cowboys defense. Granted, I wasn't very impressed with how Tua played, especially under pressure because he has struggled a little bit under pressure this year. Getting them in the field goal range on that game-winning drive was awesome. And the thing that actually really impressed me about what the Dolphins did was how well their defense played. It was, you expect the Dolphins to put together scoring drives. Tua threw for almost 300 yards. What I didn't expect was for their defense to pretty much shut down the Cowboys, except for Dallas's early drive and then the late drive where they got the touchdown. But other than that, I mean, the Dolphins were dominant. They got after Dak Prescott. They sacked him 4 times. They shut down the Cowboys' ground game. And I mean, CeeDee Lamb had a big game, but that was it. It was either CeeDee Lamb or nothing. And so I was impressed with the Dolphins' defense. And that's what they need. If you're going to win in the playoffs, your defense has to show up. So I think it was encouraging to see them play that well.
Yeah. I think the Dolphins didn't finish drives very well. 1 of 4 in the red zone.
You want to give any credit to the Cowboys, though?
I don't know that. I think the point I made before we popped on the podcast, we were sort of talking as we were waiting for Breech to come on HQ, is like, I thought the most interesting thing to me about this game was that when the Cowboys needed a drive, Dak engineered one and set it up on a would-be game-winning drive. And then Tua, the Dolphins, and now Tua did a great job, but I think you mostly would give credit to Mike McDaniel in the run game. Huge third down throw to Tyreek by Tua. But, when the Dolphins needed a drive, they went and got one. And these two teams, the total here was 51.5. It dropped down to 49. A bunch of sharp people were hammering the under. It ends up being 22-20. A ton of field goals. I think Jason Saunders had 5, and then Brandon Aubrey kept his perfect streak going. I don't know that I necessarily got an answer about either of my fraudulent concerns. The Cowboys didn't go on the road and win, but they easily could have.
Well, the Dolphins beat a winning team for once. They're 1-3 now.
But they only scored 22 points. And
yeah, but I mean, wait a second. Why are you not giving credit to Dan Quinn and that defense, though?
No, I am. Look, I think you're right. The Dolphins defense is really good too. I don't think that the overwhelming concern about these two teams was necessarily answered by I thought one thing would be answered, and yes, the Dolphins did beat a team above 500. But
here, let me ask you to rank this. Which team right now at 12:29 Eastern time, 11? It's still Christmas for Breeches, by the way, which is weird. Right now, which teams do you feel better about? Rank them. San Francisco, Miami, Dallas.
San Francisco won easily by a wide margin.
Me.
I think San Francisco easily won by a wide margin. I would put Miami 2 and then Dallas 3. Look,
let me get Breech's rankings and then you can circle back.
Well, the reason I have
with Brinson.
Okay, the reason I have Dallas 3, and I'm going to assume Breech does too, dude. Mike McCarthy didn't chortle up or whatever in this game badly, I guess, but I don't trust this Cowboys team in a close game in the playoffs. And now they, because of this loss, are almost certainly going to have to win 3 road games in order to get to they would have to win 3 road games to get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, who cares? That was Breech's first overall pick, so we're fine there. They're going to lose in the first round. I don't think anyone thinks they're going to win 3 on the road. But I think you're Breech. Do you agree that you feel the same about I feel a lot better about the Dolphins.
I don't know if I feel better about the Dolphins. I mean, I think I have a hard time seeing the Cowboys get past the 49ers. I have a hard time. The Cowboys are 0-4 last. They can't win away games. So there's a lot of question marks about the Cowboys certainly going to the playoffs.
Also, when we talk about the Dolphins, and again, I'm not trying to troll producer Harry here by any stretch of the imagination, but what does this conversation look like 6 days from now on? What time is that game on New Year's Eve?
Yeah.
noon,
cross
yeah,
that.
1 p.m. Eastern on CBS.
Yeah, we'll cross that road. But for now, can Harry appreciate the win? And I thought it was a pretty good
Sure,
win.
enjoy. Yeah, soak up your win. You go to the
We
playoffs.
should have asked us to rank them and how we feel about them then. This was a great win for the Dolphins. I will absolutely
it's
say
a great
that.
win for the Dolphins. It's just I think that would you I mean what odds would you need to take the Cowboys to win the NFC or the Dolphins to win the AFC?
Yeah, like the Cowboys are different. I thought they played well in that game, but they lost. So that's a problem. But I feel better about the Dolphins, a team that we said beat anyone.
But if the Ravens beat the Dolphins by 25 points on next Sunday, where's your head going to be at with the Dolphins?
Oh yeah, it'll switch. But I mean, it's like that every week. So for now, I want to enjoy it. But I mean, we just talked about being worried about the 49ers because Brock Purdy is the pumpkin and they can't play from behind, but you feel way, way, way better about
well, I think one concern with the Dolphins, though, is the Jalen Waddle injury. He's dealing with the high ankle sprain, and that could put him out against the Ravens.
They lost Connor Williams, Eichenberg's at center now. They ran the ball well, but I don't know. It feels like the Dolphins are getting some unfortunate injury, and everybody gets hurt this time of year. I mean, Mark Andrews out. You have like Trent Williams banged up. I mean, but contenders are losing players, right? But it feels like the Dolphins are. There's just so much. There's not a lot of room for error if they lose some of these skill position guys.
Yeah, but like you said, that's it. That doesn't matter. If Trent Williams doesn't play, that's a huge problem. All right, Breech. Before we move on, top 3 kickers in the NFL according to Breech, because I want to ask. I want to see if Harry's guy's in there.
Harry's guy is not in there. If we're just going if we're going top 3 kickers from week 16, then he's absolutely in there because he had arguably the best game of the season of any kicker, with 5 field goals, 3 long range ones. I mean, Jason
that still
Sanders
doesn't put him in the top 3 season long.
It does not.
Wow.
You give him 5 for 5 in that game, his percentage this season is still under 85%.
Okay. All right. So Justin Tucker number 1, or is it someone else?
No, I think Brandon Aubrey, the Cowboys kicker. He has not missed a field goal the entire season. He is on some sort of crazy run. He has the NFL records for most field goals without a miss to start a career, and a lot of indoor games. So I thought his biggest test would be playing outdoors. He didn't miss against the Dolphins. He didn't miss against the Bills. He has just been on fire. So I'd say him, Harrison Butker, and you can debate the third one.
Justin Tucker?
Or are
are we talking just this season?
Yeah.
I mean, if we're talking about time, Justin Tucker's number 1. But if we're talking just this season, Tucker struggled a little bit.
Okay. All right.
Tucker's not a top 3 quarterback. Top 3 kicker for you this year?
He's a top 3
for the 2023 season. Tucker is the best kicker ever, but for the 2023 season, I am not sure that he is a top 3 kicker.
There's your YouTube short right there, Harry.
I know.
It's
so
Chris
just to be
Boswell,
clear,
by the
Breech,
way.
can you say that again? Justin Tucker is not a top 3 kicker?
I have to preface that each time by best kicker ever, but maybe not a top 3 kicker for 2020.
All right. We'll talk.
Oh man, just clip it right there. Don't even.
We'll talk about Justin Tucker. Never. Moving on. Patrick Mahomes can't save the Chiefs. That's producer Harry's headline. And great news.
Producer Harry's slinging. Harry is Salt Bay for the rest of the AFC tonight. We're like,
well, he's excited about the Dolphins. He and I are excited about the Dolphins. You two are ruining the Dolphins parade, but that's okay.
No, I love.
Oh, yes, you are. All right. So
the
great news about this Chiefs loss is that Mark Davis better hire Antonio Pierce.
Yeah.
There's nothing else great coming out of it for Kansas City. So, Brinson, is this the end of an era? Is this just a rough patch? Is they going to circle back next year? Are they going to make a run now? I don't know what to make of this team because they are all sorts of messed up. And it starts with the reenactment of the 2006 Patriots in which Tom Brady had no one to throw the ball to. I feel like that's what Patrick Mahomes is up against.
As podcast devotees will note, we had a Nissan Thrilling Play of the Day segment. I read it, and it involved 2 Raiders defensive touchdowns in 7 seconds. The Chiefs, I still think, here's where I'm at on the Chiefs. They have big time problems.
Cut it, Harry. There's another YouTube short.
The Chiefs have problems, particularly at receiver. Travis Kelce is aging, but is still a very, very, very good player. Isaiah Pacheco banged up. The run game, the offensive line hadn't been as elite as it has been in years past. But all these times the Chiefs have made these they have these runs. It's Mahomes and Andy Reid carrying them. And we say, what if the defense gets hot and can help them win a Super Bowl? And it's done that before. Well, what if the defense is just really good, has been good all year, is going to probably be good through the rest of the year? What if the offense gets hot? And I'm not saying that they're just going to magically find a receiver, just that maybe Mahomes and Kelsey will just have 3 games of going wild, which is not implausible at all.
We've said this every year.
Yep.
But this year feels different.
So I heard Nance and Romo say this. I was in the car watching the game. Well, I mean, that doesn't sound safe.
He was sitting behind the parking lot at the grocery store, Breech, watching the game.
I was in the car watching the game.
Burning them.
Listening to the game, I should say. And I heard it was like amid the 2 defensive touchdowns from the Raiders. And I think the line was, I believe from Nance, Tony, this team just feels like it just wants to get to the postseason already. And it does feel like that. Do you think it's possible? And this is what Nance and Romo alluded to, that 5 straight years of playing basically into February has it's sort of like the Warriors corollary, or like the LeBron James Miami Heat, that Cavs stuff, where it's like you play like every postseason run you go on is 2, 3, 4 extra games. Or maybe it's the Patriots. We talk about the Patriots with that. Like eventually it wears on you a little bit. Do you think that's catching up to them at all? And they're so frustrated with this wide receiver situation that they really do just want to get to the playoffs and see if they can flick a switch?
I think it's more of this team just isn't as good as they were in any of the past 5 years. I mean, they lost to a quarterback who didn't complete a pass after the first quarter. Aiden O'Connell is the first quarterback to win a game when he did not complete a pass after the first quarter since the year 2000, when the Bengals beat the Broncos, by the way. But it's literally been 23 years since we've seen that happen. The other worrisome thing is that this is a team that usually gets hot at the end of the season. They're 1-3 in December. They haven't had a losing record in December since 2013. It has been 10 years. This team usually catches fire. They're not doing that. We're seeing 4 losses in their past 6 games. Mahomes has almost hit, I think, a career high in interceptions. So he's trying to do too much. And now you're telling me if the Chiefs are staring at a 3rd seed, a possible first-round matchup with the Buffalo Bills, which we'll talk about a little bit when we get to the AFC Playoff Picture, but this just feels like a team
that would be.
This just feels like a team that I don't see a route to them playing a ton better. I mean, granted, the other team's not going to get 2 defensive touchdowns every game, so you take that away, and they probably beat the Raiders, but I don't see this team putting up 35 points in the playoffs if they need it. It just seems like it's going to be a struggle, and I wouldn't be surprised at all if they lost the wild card round.
Right. This feels like a team that didn't start 2-4 or whatever they started a few years ago, and I kept worrying about them. And as Brinson noted, they were going to get red hot, and they did, because there are no, to paraphrase Rick Pitino, Larry Bird ain't walking through that door. I mean, it's called the wide receiver.
It's Tyreek. I mean, Rashee Rice didn't have a great game. Obviously, he's played a lot better. He's not Tyreek. Nobody's Tyreek Hill. I'm not going to go down the path of they lost the Tyreek Hill trade because they won the Super Bowl. I mean, that seems
that's fine.
Short-sighted.
Yeah. I mean,
they would, of course, like Tyreek Hill to be on that roster. That would make a difference. It does feel like there's just more to it than that, though. Mahomes,
is it? I mean, they just have guys that don't get open.
I mean,
but everybody's angry all the time. Like Mahomes was yelling at his lineman. Kelsey's throwing his helmet down. Everybody's body language looks like an 8-year-old who just saw their cat get hit by a car. It's just everything about the team is so weird right now.
I love it. I was going to say the Steelers under Matt Canada, but sure, go with the cat reference.
What was the first game with Taylor Swift?
I don't know.
I think it was Bears.
So it was like
Way
week
back
2,
December.
week 3, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
bring up is she bad luck? Are you going to bring up, is she a distraction?
I was going to jokingly do it. Look, this team went on their week 10 bye, and since then they are 2-4 with wins at the Patriots and at the Raiders. I mean, what is happening?
Their wide receivers suck. That's the tall and short of it. I think that's what it comes down to. Their offensive line has struggled too. The tackles haven't been very good, and that's obviously a concern. But if guys aren't getting open, guys aren't getting open. All right, there'll be plenty of time to talk about.
Real quickly, Wilson, sorry, but I think Antonio Pierce 100% deserves this Raiders job.
Yeah, so hopefully Mark Davis just takes the layup.
Don't do this, Jim Harbaugh. Don't mess up.
Don't take the layup and go to half court and shoot a half court shot for $500,000. You're going to airball
a sky hook at half court.
Just take the layup. Great job by Antonio Pierce. Terrible job by the Chiefs. All right, Breech, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back,
I'm going to fill up my cup while we break.
Everyone who's listening, why Joe Flacco is the best quarterback, not only in the AFC North, but in the NFL, right after this.
Well, you need your sports news anywhere?
We've got breaking news to bring you.
Then get your sports anytime you want them. Big trade news overnight to discuss.
Because we know you need sports all the time.
A lot of movement in the rankings this week.
A legend adds to their legacy.
We're bringing you that breaking news right here on HQ.
CBS Sports HQ, anywhere, anytime, all the time.
All right, Breech. The Fighting Joe Flacco's, one of the best teams in the AFC. They're 10-5, which is Crazy Town, USA. They're 2 games better in the score sheet, the record column, than the Jacksonville Jaguars, who are the number 4 seed, but they're top the AFC South, so that's why they're 1 spot ahead of them. I said maybe for 2 weeks now that I think that the Browns are going to win a playoff game. They were beating the pants off of the C.J. Stroudless Texans, and they were up 36-7 in the fourth quarter before Texans got a few touchdowns there to make it relatively close. Joe Flacco makes the Browns a legit contender to the tune of 1 playoff win, 1+ playoff wins. Where are you on Joe Flacco and the Browns?
Look, I think we know that I'm the unofficial president of the Joe Flacco fan club. After he won that first game.
What are you talking about?
After you won the first game, I went on the Power Ranking show that Tuesday and said, what if Joe Flacco's so good he gets the Browns to the Super Bowl? Because he looked that good. I mean, it is almost impossible to believe that he sat at home for 11 weeks because no one called him. This guy was willing to be a backup quarterback. He was willing to sit on a bench. He didn't even need to be playing, and no one wanted him. And the Browns come out and they say, Joe, come play for us. And now we're talking about throws for over 300 yards in the 3rd straight game. The first Browns quarterback to ever do that in franchise history when they win all 3 games. They've had quarterbacks throw for 300 yards but not win all 3 games. And then the 3rd oldest quarterback in NFL history to throw for 300 yards in 3 consecutive games. What he's doing is absolutely unheard of. Now, the question is it going to be one of those where you have the backup quarterback in Jake Browning, Josh Dobbs, whatever, where they come, they play lights out for 3 or 4 games, and then they crash back to earth? Is that what's going to happen with Joe Flacco? No. Or because he's such a veteran, he knows what he's doing. He has a very good understanding of Kevin Stefanski's offense. He has a great connection with Amari Cooper. Is he going to keep playing at this level? And if he keeps playing at this level, why can't this team win a couple of playoff games? Look at the AFC. They already beat the Ravens once. That's sure the team you're most worried about. I could see this team beating the Chiefs. This defense is good enough to beat anyone. All they need is a little bit of quarterback help, and I think Flacco's good enough to get them to an AFC title game.
I think it was doing Christmas week. You do a lot of driving. I believe it was Mark Sessler of Around the NFL podcast. Love Sess. Pointing out that this has Major League 98 Vinny Testaverde vibes, where they went 12-1 with Testaverde, who was 35 at the time, 38, new 35. Flacco's dropped back 40+ times in all 4 of his games. They can't run the ball at all, and Flacco's just winging it. Him and Amari Cooper, Amari Cooper could have gone for 350 yards in this game. Like broken Flipper, or is it Flipper Anderson, like
336?
336, that's right. I should know that because that's my area code of my telephone.
Shout out.
Hashtag 336. Keenan Allen, amongst others, Torrey Holt, shout out. Anyway, if the 49ers and Cowboys had won, there's not a crazy, and I wrote about this on Sunday, not a crazy chance of the Browns getting the 1 seed. As it stands, I do not think you want to play Joe Flacco in the playoffs.
All right, well, let me ask. I don't know if you were, because Breech didn't answer the question. I've said for a while they're going to win 1 playoff game. Are they going to win more than 1 playoff game?
I kind of think so.
Over under's 1.5. What are you taking?
Is it over plus money?
Who would you take in a Browns-Dolphins divisional game in Miami?
Cleveland, baby. Cleveland's over 500. Joe Flacco's
I don't think
it.
producer Harry wants that Joe Flacco smoke.
If I'm the Ravens,
You don't want January Joe.
You don't want January
Dude,
Joe smoke.
Okay. All right. Can we look at Joe Flacco's numbers? All right. All right. I'm going to give out the numbers, and can somebody do the math and prorate these for me? But basically, is Joe Flacco, I think that Joe Flacco is on pace with 1,307 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 7 picks in 4 games with a 59.4% completion percentage. He's basically putting together 2012 Joe Flacco's regular season, but with more yards and more interceptions.
And he's not as mobile, but he's probably a better, smarter quarterback.
He wasn't even like that mobile back in 2012, and he's got an elite-ish number one. He's got a legit number one wide receiver in Amari Cooper. He's got a legit number one tight end in David Njoku, who's playing really well, especially considering he's like fell in a fire earlier this season. The defense is the best in football. I personally believe that Joe Flacco flipped a switch in the postseason. He just has that. He has that, whatever the DNA, the gene, the vibe, the ability to be clutch. He has that. And I would not really would not want to play the Browns in the playoffs if January Joe was coming to town. I don't think he's going to lay some massive egg in one of these playoff spots. If the Browns get to 10, 11, 12 wins and they're there, I think they can. I'll take the over. I think they win. I mean, but 2+ playoff games.
You do have to be a little concerned with interceptions if they play a really good team, because obviously CJ Stroud wasn't starting this game. This is his second straight game with multiple interceptions. But to Brinson's point, real quick, you mentioned his yardage. If he played a 17-game season, he would be on pace for 5,554 yards, which would smash the NFL single-season record. Joe Flacco, in 4 starts, already leads the Browns in passing yards and passing touchdowns this season. Deshaun Watson had 6 starts. Flacco's passed all his numbers. DTR had 3 starts. Obviously, Flacco not even in the same.
I also think it's worth noting that Joe Flacco is doing all of the things that Kevin Stefanski is asking him to do as part of this offense and within the structure of this offense. And the Browns' offense as a whole looks substantially better than it ever did with Deshaun Watson doing everything outside of the structure of the offense.
So to back up Breech's quick math there, again, looking at our buddies at True Media, in terms of Week 16, Joe Flacco is 3rd in terms of EPA after Matthew Stafford and Josh Allen. And
oh my God, absolute Brinson porn.
5th, yeah, no kidding. Keep your pants on. He was 5th in explosive plays per dropback. He was 6th in first downs per pass attempts. He was fantastic against the blitz. I mean, it goes on, and it just portends good things. All right, let's get going here. Producer Harry is at his in-laws. He has things to do. He's got to make breakfast, so he's got to get up early tomorrow. We don't want to keep him too late.
Yeah,
all right, Brinson.
Slack notifications, so just tell me.
We talked about this earlier in the show, just because we were touching on the Dolphins and the old Cowboys there. Producer Harry is still leaning into this. Cowboys, ! Will lose the wild card game, ! Do you agree with Producer Harry on that?
I will say that
they're 3-5 on the road this year.
2023, the world the way it is, the millennials taking over, avocado prices through the roof, TikTok, scourge of the earth. You don't know what's going to happen in the future.
Are you trying to drag this out until the new year? What's going on here?
There's one thing I do have faith in.
What's that?
And that's that Mike McCarthy and the Dallas Cowboys are going to absolutely melt down in the first round of the playoffs. And
what
show
percentage?
Some kind of impressive fashion.
What's the Brinson percentage?
What's that?
What's the Brinson percentage on that?
100.
Oh boy.
What a twist. I thought you were going to say they're going to roll, and you're saying they're going to lose and melt down.
They're going to melt down. This team is not built for
Jesus. Are you agree with 100%, Brinson? Breech?
I mean, I will say it's looking like they're going to play the Buccaneers, and the Buccaneers are hot right now. I don't want to say Tampa Bay is the 2020 Tom Brady team.
Keep talking about the Buccaneers because they're next. So go ahead and make your point.
Well, so we're talking about a Bucs team that's won 4 games in a row. They dominated Jacksonville. That game was never close. I mean, their win over Jacksonville was more impressive than Baltimore's win over Jacksonville. I mean, the game was just never close. They beat down the Packers.
Devin White was awesome in that game. The defense, Winfield is playing incredible, like the high level football. This Tampa defense is legit, and Baker Mayfield is just another quarterback the Browns wish they had instead of Deshaun Watson.
And I think we said a few weeks ago, I mean, probably a month ago, we're like, the Cowboys are destined to get the 5 seed, get the bye to the divisional round because they'll beat whoever comes out of the NFC South. But with Baker Mayfield playing the way he's playing, it does not feel like such a lock anymore. So I'm almost inclined to breach by it. I can't even call the Cowboys a lock to get out of the wild card round anymore. I'm 50-50.
I think the Cowboys will go to Tampa Bay as the spread will be so short. People will be like, the Cowboys are obvious here. 2.5-point favorites, and the Bucs will beat them by double digits.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, producer Harry. By the way, just to reiterate, Breech again had Dallas going in the first round when we had our Super Bowl draft last week. So
did Pete grab the Bucs late, or did I get the
He
Bucs?
got him in the 4th round. That was his last
pick. I wanted the Bucs,
but I also have the Bills, so I'm happy.
Yep,
the Bills might not make the playoffs.
The Bills
Nah,
are going
they're
to win the AFC.
They're pretty good shape.
I got Bills Rams Super Bowl. That's where I'm at.
So, yeah, where are we on Todd Bowles? I mean, I think Jonathan Jones reported this as well, but it sounds like there's mutual interest from both sides in Tampa Bay, which makes sense. And Brinson, you sort of touched on this. Like, you can go out and get your young quarterback, or in this case, trade for Deshaun Watson, but DTR, Trey Lance, whomever, sometimes the old-timer might be the best option if you can surround him. Old-timer in the sense that he's been in the league for a while. He's bounced around.
Yeah. He's been on the 4th team, but if you were Jason Light, Buccaneers GM, and you're doing this retooling post Tom Brady, and you've got Mike Evans, you still got Chris Godwin, Trey Palmer. Yeah, Trey Palmer looks like a pretty good little pick. Kate Otten, not bad. Rashad White's been awesome this season. Baker Mayfield is going to be the best quarterback in the NFC South for the next 5 years, barring some kind of surprise draft pick. Why not roll with it?
Breech, who wins Tampa Bay versus Cleveland Super Bowl?
What a great Super Bowl.
I thought about that earlier today, Wilson.
Think of all the revenge angles you have. We mentioned Goff possibly facing the Rams, Joe Flacco versus the Ravens, Baker versus the Browns. My God, the game's in Las Vegas. So
I'll tell you who loses.
You?
CBS executives.
I don't know. There's a lot.
Dude, Cleveland. Well, the Browns in the Super Bowl would be a really good story, but Cleveland, Tampa Bay, when it looks like we might get like Dallas, Miami, would be something. I would not say that would be the first pick of our bosses.
You're underestimating the Joe Flacco fan base, Brinson. He alone will bring 75
Browns fans in the Super Bowl would be. It would be like Zombieland in Las Vegas. With
Vegas would turn into a giant dog pound.
Yes.
All right. The line is -1.5. You don't get to know which team. Who are you picking?
Tampa would be favored by 1.5. I think the way that they're playing.
Who are you taking?
I'm saying Joe Flacco.
Who you taking, Breech?
The Browns.
I think the Browns would actually be favored by 1.5. Sorry.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, I'm going to give Brinson a fun fact about this Lions team that will absolutely blow your mind right after this.
We're back for an all-new season of Ink Master.
This is wild.
And 3-time Ink Master winner DJ Tamby returns as a judge.
Guaranteed there's going to be some shots fired.
Y'all gotta watch our back.
You're gonna get it because you talk a lot, bro.
This tattoo is badass.
That is insanity.
This piece is super dynamic. You better strap in and be ready for the ride.
Victory is a work of art. Ink Master, new season, now streaming exclusively on Paramount+.
What do you get a third tattoo, Wilson?
What'd you say?
What do you get a third tattoo?
I got to see my guy Kevin on January 11th. Thanks for asking.
You're getting one?
Oh, yeah. It's all.
What are you getting?
Snoopy with a Steelers jersey.
Yeah, I'm getting Kenny Pickett's face on my arm. Kenny Pickett choking.
Are you really getting a third tattoo?
Yeah. Producer Nada said, "Listen, once you get one, no matter how stupid the first one is, you sort of start doing it." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right."
You're getting a third tattoo,
and it'll be on Wilson money.
This is not the worst midlife crisis in the world.
No, you can't see him, so it's fine.
And it was all started by Ryan Finley.
Ryan Finley.
Shout out to NC State.
I was reading that stat line the other day. I was looking at my arm with a sad face. I was like, what time? I don't think producer Harry knows that story. I will tell you at some point, producer Harry. All right, let's talk about the Lions, who limped their way to the victory over, oh my gosh, Nick Mullins. I don't know. I joked on Twitter, or as you call it, Breech, X. How many pick sixes did Josh Dobbs have to throw in practice for Kevin O'Connor to be like, you know what, Nick Mullins is going to be our guy? I think Sean Mannion eventually made an appearance. The Lions won that game. Brinson, the fun fact or the not so fun fact, this Lions defense was good for a while, and it feels like they think it's 2022. In Week 16 against Nick Mullen and the Vikings in general, they gave up 11 plays on defense of 20 or more yards. 11. That was the worst in the NFL by a large margin. Number 2 were the Ravens, who gave up 7. Brock Purdy got some chunk plays early on. I think Sam Darnold had some late, but they almost double that up. I feel like that's a concern, and producer Harry's exclamatory statement to you is the Lions will make the NFC title game. I'm a little nervous about that.
So the Lions are very much live to get the 1 seed right now because of San Francisco's loss and the fact that the Lions are at the Cowboys and then host the Vikings to close out the season. They will need the Rams to help them out. They got to win out and need the Rams to help them out, but they can get the 1 seed. I think it's viable. I mean, the Dallas plays great at home, so I mean, you say whatever you want about it, but I don't worry as much about this Lions defense as maybe the general consensus is, but that's because actually, no, it's just 2. 1, there's no 2. There's just 1. They're going to get guys back. Aleem McNeil should be coming back, and Chauncey Gardner-Johnson might be back next week. I think that makes a huge difference for this defense. And the Lions are punching so far above their expected playing weight right now that
what does that mean?
We thought the Lions would be good this year. We didn't think they'd be this good. Right?
Yeah, but I mean, I don't disagree with that, but I don't know if Dan Campbell had this team believing that they would go undefeated.
No, I just mean that it was sort of, the Lions were favorites to win the division at plus 125 or something like that. Or maybe they were because the Jaguars are big minus favorites. And they're 11-4. They've had these I look at their schedule in totality and just think that they had this incredibly hot stretch to start the season where, they get to 6-2 and win 2 coming out of the bye. They're 8-2. And there's just been this little stretch where things were tough. They smoked the Broncos and they still won by 6 on the road in the division against a team that's fighting for its playoff life and still has, like, Justin Jefferson's trying to will them to come back. Nick,
I got to push back. It's Nick Mullen. And by the way, I said Sean Mannion earlier.
They picked him off 4 times.
Because he's terrible. He's not Brock Purdy. I mean,
yeah.
They should have won that game by a lot. The spread wasn't, what was it? Actually,
spread was
like
Lions
-5.5,
3.
I think.
Okay,
so
-3.
It's close in that sense. But I think that's a team you put away.
Yeah, yes. I think the Vikings in general are just like kind of linger. I don't know, man. I think you go in the division this late in the season on the road against a team that is a playoff caliber team, even with the backup, and to come away with a win by 6 points is a pretty solid effort.
All right, Breech, the Lions make the NFC title game, exclamation point or question mark?
Question mark? I don't think the Lions are going to get out of the wild card round. I think they're going to get stuck playing the Rams. I think Matthew Stafford is going to dice them up, win by 2 touchdowns.
700 yards in Detroit.
And then the whole city of Detroit, then he's going to feel guilty about beating them since he was on that team and never led them out of the wild card round. And then he's just the guy who's sticking the dagger in. And I don't even think Detroit really has a shot at the number 1 seed, which Harry can cut and paste when they do clinch number 1 seed. I just think they're going to get steamrolled by the Cowboys. Cowboys don't lose at home. They're winning by 27 points per game in their home games this year. They're just so good at home. I have a tough time seeing, and they've got the hangover. You just clinch your first division title in 30 years. So you kind of, a natural letdown in your next game, which you really can't afford to have because it's on a short week because you're playing on a Saturday in Dallas. And then if they lose that, the 1 seed's out the window. So I just feel like they're going to be a 3 seed, and that's not. If it is the Rams, it's not a great matchup for them.
If they're a 3 seed and they draw the Rams, it sucks. If they are
they'll be favored in that game, though.
Yeah, I'm going to hammer.
Rams are playing well, but they'll be favored. By the way, just let me clear up quickly. I mentioned Sean Mannion. I was watching the game towards the end as I was getting ready to go to drive around like you were driving around. I actually thought they took Mullins out because he played so badly. Sean Mannion plays for the Seahawks. I just want to make that clear because people are whinging about, you said Sean Mannion. Sean Mannion didn't play. He should have played. They should have traded for him in the middle of the game, but he didn't.
You bet. Their backup
Breech,
quarterback is the
Breech,
BYU.
What is
right?
the not to derail it, but what is the path for? I'm trying to do this too, but ESPN's stupid playoff machine didn't work.
Oh, we
I
got
like
to talk
the
about that.
logos.
We'll
I like to see it.
talk about it in a second.
No, I'm saying like, what is the path? Like, what is the matchup? The first round, because it feels like if the Lions can get this second or third seed is a huge deal in the NFC. Because if you feel like if the Lions get the 2 seed, they get the Packers or the Vikings at home in a playoff game, they're going to win that game.
Well, I mean, the 7th seed right now is the Seahawks, who already beat the Lions, and if the Seahawks went out, they're in.
Yes, I just mean you got a home game against not the Rams.
But here's the thing, and let's talk about it. Let's go right to it. NFC Playoff Picture time, and we'll start. We'll keep this conversation going, and let's do 5, 6, and 7. Right now, it's Cowboys at 5, Brinson's Rams at 6, and the Seattle Seahawks at 7. All those teams, I would imagine, are teams that you don't feel like facing if you are the Eagles, the Lions, Tampa Bay, in whatever order you feel like. All those teams are actually good teams. You want the Vikings, the Falcons, or the Packers to make the playoff, or the Saints, if God is really looking upon you as a team to host a playoff game.
Saints ain't making the playoffs.
So rank the no, my point is that you want to face them. Like, you don't want to face these 5, 6, 7 teams I'm talking about. So Brinson, rank the playoff teams that are going to have to travel: Dallas, Rams, Seattle, in terms of teams you don't want to face. It doesn't matter who the team is.
Number 1 is the Rams. I just think so. The way I look at this postseason,
go through it real quick. Brinson, Breech goes through his, and you can circle back and tell me why. So give me just.
I just said. Oh yeah, gotcha. Yeah. So I've got Rams, Dallas, Seattle, Green Bay, Minnesota.
That's it, just the ones that are inside. So you got the Rams, Dallas, Seattle. That's your ranking for the teams. Breech, you agree with that?
Cowboys at 5. I think the Seahawks at 6 and the Rams at 7.
All right, go ahead, Breech. I mean, Brinson, explain, and then Breech can yell at you.
For me, I look at this postseason and I think that this feels like, and I could end up being wrong, happens a lot. It feels like one of those postseasons where it's going to be the hot, like the quarterback who gets scorching hot in the postseason and can rip off a couple of wins just because they are playing. They can, and I think
Joe Flacco,
right? Exactly. I think Joe Flacco qualifies. I think
original Joe Flacco. Sorry,
I think this year's Joe Flacco qualifies.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I think Josh Allen qualifies.
Yep.
I think Matthew Stafford qualifies because
it's playing great.
It's just dudes who, if they start seeing the matrix as passers, there's nothing you can do about it. Eli Manning did it. Ben Roethlisberger did it. Aaron Rodgers did it. The arm talent and the skill level, the ability to be a veteran enough quarterback where you could just, like, it just clicks and you are rolling.
Like Dak and Geno too?
No, I don't think Dak and Geno have that. So Stafford, that's why the Rams are my number 1. If Stafford's healthy and they're protecting him, and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are healthy, and he's dialed in, they can beat anybody on that side of the bracket.
All right, Breech, you're leaving Dallas?
Well, let me ask Brinson this real quick, because the 49ers loss throws a wrench into things, because part of our
49ers will now play everybody in week 18. Yes.
Right. And so now the 49ers are almost certainly going to play their starters because they're not going to have the number 1 seed clinch going into week 18. They're going to need to win that game. And so maybe the Rams are now finishing the season 9-8 and not 10-7.
So if I'm looking at it on the upshot right now, if the Rams beat the Giants, they obviously have to do that on the road. If they lose to the Giants and get the F out, and lose to the 49ers, then there are 2 games. There's one game. If the Steelers beat the Seahawks in Seattle, they would essentially be clinched, and they would be rooting for the Vikings over the Packers in week 17. And then in week 18, Bears to beat the Packers, Lions to beat the Vikings, and Cardinals to beat the Seahawks would be the games that they would be eyeing down. So in other words, they can still get in, but they control their own destiny, but they will have to, and this is where it gets interesting too. What if the 49ers are playing for the 1 seed and the Rams are playing to get in the playoffs, and They haven't beaten them in nine regular season games, and the Rams go and beat the 49ers.
That's the Sunday night game.
Sunday night game costed the 1 seed, move up to the 6th seed, and then all of a sudden you see them again in the NFC Championship game.
Well, even if the Rams lose though, and say they end up the season 9
They're
and
still
8,
88% to get in.
well, because the one thing working in their favor is that you look at the 7 and 8 teams: Vikings, Falcons, Packers, Saints. Vikings and Packers play each other Sunday night this week, so one of them has to lose, and then the Falcons and Saints play each other. Falcons and Saints play each other in Week 18, so one of them has to lose. So you're cutting down on the teams that can end up in a tiebreaker with you.
Hey, Breech, before we move on, let me ask you, then I'll ask Brinson. Are you comfortable with the top 7 in the NFC, or do you want to add somebody and kick somebody out?
I think it goes 49ers, Eagles, Lions, Buccaneers, Cowboys, Rams, Seahawks.
You could just said you're fine with the way it currently is, but okay.
Yeah, I think I would.
Well, I have the Eagles at 2, not the Lions.
I would say this too. I would move the Seahawks.
Let me apologize to Breech. I didn't update my thing. My bad, Breech.
I would move the Seahawks up to my 6 in the question you asked above Dallas. I think the Mike McCarthy thing worries me, and when Pete Carroll and Geno Smith are just finding ways to win, and you have DK and Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba, Ken Walker's running well, defense is creating some chaos. Seattle's a little dangerous. I wouldn't.
Yeah, but you just said that Geno can't do what Stafford can do and get hot. All Geno does is get hot.
I don't think he can win 4. I don't think he can win 3 or 4 games and win the Super Bowl.
Oh, good Lord, 3 or 4. That's a lot. Once you get into
no. I mean, this is pretty obvious. I mean, they just beat the Eagles. I think they could go to Detroit. They beat the Eagles at home. They beat Detroit on the road. Seattle and the Rams and the Seahawks are chaos agents on the back end of this playoff bracket. Like if we get Rams at Lions, Seahawks at Eagles, and Cowboys at Bucks, I think there's a very reasonable chance that all 3 road teams all 3 underdogs win those games. The Bucks beat the Cowboys, Rams beat the Lions, and Seahawks beat the Eagles. I don't think that's outrageous at all.
All right, let's go to the AFC. Breech, 5 is Cleveland, 6 is Buffalo, 7 is Indianapolis. Let's start at the bottom here. Any teams you want to swap in or out? Or are you comfortable with where we are here?
By the way, in that scenario, the Rams could host the NFC Championship game. Just throwing it out there.
Okay.
I've been on the Gardner Minshew bandwagon. I feel like I would be miserable if I got off and out, even though they got slaughtered by the Falcons in a must-win game. My God. But I think the Browns and Bills feel like locks at this point. And then, I mean,
are the Falcons the most annoying NFL team in the last 40 years?
Unpredictable. They're just unpredictable. They always do the opposite of whatever you think they're going to do is what they do. I just think the AFC playoff race is crazy because I could see the Bengals beating the Chiefs this week. I could see the Raiders beating the Colts, the Titans beating the Texans. Like there's just so many wrenches that could be thrown into this. But I'll say the Colts get the 7th seed, even though my heart says the Bengals.
Yeah, you don't feel good about it.
This feels like one of those Week 18 seasons where Andy Dalton's people from the opposing team are donating to Andy Dalton's charity.
Well, yeah.
Was it the Bills fans? The Bills got in because Andy Dalton beat the Ravens.
Right.
So Bills fans donated like $500,000 to Andy Dalton's charity or something.
That sounds right.
All right. So we have in the AFC, we have Baltimore, Miami.
Baltimore's a lock. I'm sorry, producer Harry. I don't think next week's going to matter. Baltimore's a lock at number 1, and then after that, it's sort of mayhem.
But those are the only 2 teams who are in. The Chiefs are, I see, at 98%. I mean, they're going to get in. Man, the Browns are over 99%.
Well, who's winning the AFC South? What's everybody's prediction there?
I'm going to stick with the Jaguars, but do not feel great about it.
No, and if CJ comes back and he's actually rested and maybe a little healthier. Because they played with a little spark at the end of that game.
Any chance CJ Stroud doesn't win Rookie of the Year?
Well, we'll see what old Puka keeps doing. Puka won't stop.
Puka's down to like plus 450 after
Can't
that.
Stop, won't stop.
Put all your money on.
I mean, here's the thing, man. Like Jaguars, huge question. The Chiefs, huge question. I have fewer questions about the Browns and the Bills than I do about the 2 teams above them.
That's whack.
What if the Jaguars miss the playoffs?
They're not missing the playoffs.
I'll tell you who the team is. It's John Breech will be writing a story about them on Tuesday morning special. Who is it, Breech, in the AFC?
The Raiders.
That is correct.
Yeah.
You already hit-
They're
I
doing
might
pretty
read
well.
that story. I might claim that story first thing tomorrow morning. Before
How the
you wake up.
Raiders can steal the AFC West from the Kansas City Chiefs.
So let me tell you what our guy Stephen O. Sportsline, when he's not firing off anger
I know,
tweets
he said
about
that
how much he doesn't like anti-Raven sentiments on online, Breech. That
By
you
the
were
way, did
putting
you
up
see
on.
Schefter like aggressively tweeting at Rich Eisen? That was weird.
Let's see. After Sunday, before Monday, the three-headed game in which the Raiders beat the Chiefs in Kansas City. So after Sunday, the Raiders had a 1.7% chance to make the playoffs. And after everything that transpired on Monday, good Lord, including the Raiders beating the Chiefs, they're up to 12.3%. Just for completion, Breech, my Steelers are 14%, and your Bengals are 22%. So I'm saying there's a chance. All right. Brinson, do you have your Brinson VP ready, or should we circle back?
My BVP?
Yeah.
Do we have is it just all of week 16 or are we?
Yeah, of course. You can go all the way back to that Steelers whooping on the Bengals.
No, you can't. Nobody wants to hear about a game from Saturday.
I mean, George Pickens destroying the Bengals' playoff hopes would be an interesting choice.
And the media sentiment that was slapping him about the head.
Jamming everybody in the face with that. Look, I got to go two-headed monster here. Joe Flacco and Amari Cooper.
Yeah, that works.
Browns single game record for receiving yards. Joe Flacco dropping back 40 straight times for the fourth straight game. The Browns winning another one. And I'm telling you, man, I know it's like insane, but January Joe. I would not want to play this Browns team in the playoffs. Given
you're stealing Breech's line. He said they're going to the Super Bowl 3 weeks ago.
Super Bowl, Brinson.
I said that 4 weeks ago.
All right, Breech, do you have your Breech VP or do you want me to go?
You know what? My Breech VP, I'm going out of the box here. Way out of the box. It is not George Pickens. It is, drum roll, Chad Ryland. Patriots kicker.
That was a big kick. Yeah, fair.
Chad Ryland. Look, this kid has had a rough year. He's only made 65% of his field goals. He is probably never going to kick another season in the NFL. This has just been one giant learning curve for him to go out there and hit a 56-yard field goal, essentially knock the Broncos' playoff chances, final nail in the coffin. That was pressured. Already missed a field goal in the game, already missed an extra point, and just for him to bounce back like that was awesome. And I was wrapping presents, drinking eggnog while that happened, and just couldn't believe it. So Chad Ryland.
Worth noting, of the 10 remaining circa Survivor contestants,
that knocked out a few people, didn't it?
What's that?
That knocked out a few, didn't it?
Knocked out 6. There's 4 people left. $9.2 million final prize to first place. 4 people vying for it. And one of the guys that knocked out, this guy named Sean Perry, who's been refused to chop and take a $400,000 pullout because he said he was the greatest gambler of all time. Yeah, banged.
Greatest gambler wouldn't have picked the Broncos to win on Christmas Eve.
All right, boys.
Shout out to RJ White said bet the Patriots on the money line.
You guys laughed at me. I literally, when we did the HQ show, we had to pick everybody's how their last 3 games would go. I picked the Broncos. I said they'd lose to the Patriots, and you guys, that's not going to happen.
You can write about it a lot, Breech, except for what was going to happen Saturday night, which brings me back to Saturday night. Do you guys know Geno Smith's Christian name, right?
Eugene Cyril Smith the third.
And that third is important, Breech, because when you came to Heinz Field on Saturday night, you were reintroduced to a young man named Brett Mason Rudolph the third. He's a third, Brett Mason Rudolph the third. So Brett Mason Rudolph the third gets a shout out. He gets the Wilson game ball. And you know who else gets an ancillary game ball?
George Pickens. Anybody else in the offense?
Rick Spielman revenge game on Jake Browning. Take that, Jake Browning. You got cut for a reason. You got busted. Hit the bricks. You hate to see it. How was it like watching that game, Breech? How'd that make you feel?
Oh my God.
I will just say this about that game, that as soon as Mason Rudolph hit George Pickens
On the first play
for
of
an
the game.
86-yard touchdown in the first 5 minutes. I knew it was over. I didn't even need to watch the rest of it. It was just over. That's it.
How about when T. Higgins caught the long touchdown pass and then Pickens immediately answered it right back with another long touchdown pass? How'd you feel then?
Oh boy.
Even worse. Even worse.
I mean, Aiden O'Connell deserves consideration.
Let me just say this about that game real quick. I was at my in-laws' Christmas, my wife's family, and they live in Alabama. It's about 2.5 hours. I was like, I have to dip out because I have to get home and watch this Bengals game. Literally, I roll in and freaking George Pickens is catching an 86-yard touchdown. I'm like, my God, I probably should have just stayed there. And
Yeah, you have bad luck in Steelers Bengals late season matchups.
Breech, just real quick, how look over your left shoulder. Turn around and look over your left shoulder. There's a cat climbing on the wall. Look, turn around and look. See those three helmets? How those three teams do this weekend?
Some of them won.
One of them won.
Two of them. The Raiders won. Brinson, get out of here.
I know the Raiders won, the Bengals lost, and the 49ers lost.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All
All right. That's it. We're done here. Producer Harry has to go make a egg omelets for his in-laws in the morning, so we can get out of here. All right. Remember, if you'd like to support the show, give us all a thumbs up on the YouTubes. Otherwise, that's it. That's a wrap on Week 16, Sunday Night Super Friends Christmas Night Edition. It's Boxing Day for all you folks that are listening live. But do not worry.
Hello.
We will be back on Tuesday, which is tomorrow.
Today.
Yeah, today with the old Petey Prisco. We'll do the what's his thing? The
Power rankings.
The power rankings. That's what he does. So we'll be back here Tuesday afternoon, power rankings. Thanks to all you guys who watch and listen and comment. We will see you.
Wilson, you have to end with Merry Christmas to all
Merry
and to all a good night.
Merry Christmas.